The background of this is at like 88% or whatever the storage capacity.
All right, I'll clean up.
Yeah, just a heads up. All right, we got everybody in here. Got to do our pre-ceremonious drink of lion coffee before taking off.
It's still too hot. I just poured my lion coffee.
Well, you got to pretend to sip then. But welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. It is Tuesday morning, November 29th. Man, we're flying by, and it is 7:32 a.m. It's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, joined by, as always, Scott Kennedy on these morning shows. Scott, good morning to you. How's everything out in Atlanta?
Good morning. It's good. It's cold, but one of those days we're getting about a 30-degree swing, like the desert. Starts at 40 and finishes at 70. So it's going to be good. But I don't know. I feel you get the Sunday doldrums from those games behind you, and Tuesday feels like a new day. I feel like we're ready to go. Hope Broncos country is feeling well as well. And then pretty big match coming up in the World Cup at 2:00 Eastern today. So looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to that as well. Can you walk me through the scenarios? Is it a win and get in situation?
They have to win. It's win period.
There's no draw situation where they can get in? Okay.
No, because other teams would have 4 points. So they've got to theyin. If they draw, they're already behind England and Iran. I don't know if you saw that Tyler Adams nonsense has a win already, so they'd have 4 points. So you'd finish with 3. So real quick on this, I saw some some of the social media stuff about how can you watch this game, 0-0. I'm like, listen, pool play, that's basically it's 90 minutes, and it was leg 1 of a 3-period. Think of it like first period in hockey. I can watch all 3 World Cup games in just about the same amount of time it took me to watch an SEC game of the week on CBS, about 4.5 hours. So I get it. It doesn't have to be for everybody. It's not a competition. I don't know why everything has to be a competition. They can live. They can coexist. They really can. You can like one and the other. So anyway, on that note, let's talk some Denver Broncos.
Absolutely. Well, let's say hello to some people first. In here, we got Ethan coming in. Good afternoon, gents in Broncos country, talking about the World Cup. Good 0-0 draw. I'm curious to see who Ethan was pulling for. Probably had his England shirt on with USA underneath, hiding that away for sure. Jeremy Sean saying, morning, boys. Realistically, I'm not expecting any more wins this season. You wouldn't be wrong to think that way. Also, Ethan, hope all is well across the pond. Things are good. No complaints. Good to see you guys talking in there. Kevin Gray saying, morning, Broncos country. Nick and Scott on next year. I don't know what Hackett is still there for. Help game plan. LOL Denver Broncos for life. Yeah, Scott, is there any chance at this point that Hackett...
I got to share this with you real quick. You know how we talk about getting some freeze frames that are just kind of funny?
Oh, God.
Well, when I open up my Facebook to check on the Facebook chat, it has a freeze frame of whatever it happens to be on. And and yeah, I'm gonna have to play that at least for a minute and get a smile on my face or something. I can't have that. Someone probably just screen captured that, and I'm gonna be in trouble. So.
I've had a few
good stuff. Captures. I told you I was feeling good today, and the coffee hadn't even hit yet. I haven't even taken a sip.
Man, it's too cold here in Seattle. We're supposed to get snow, so I am. When it snows in Seattle, everybody loses their damn mind because Seattle is a city of hills, and they don't have any snow infrastructure in place. So my Midwestern self before used to make fun of them, and then I saw snow here, and it's like I can't go anywhere because my car literally can't function.
Yeah, no, I the ones that always bothered me were when I was in California. I had a bunch of friends in California that were from there and lived there and stuff. When they'd make fun of 2 inches of ice shutting down the South, I'm like, that's going to shut down anywhere. It's ice. I see 4-wheel drives. The good old boys in their 4-wheel drive sliding sideways off the car. And 2, I've seen when it happens when it rains around here. So y'all just shut the hell up. Rain and everybody loses their mind. It's like when I got out there, I'm like, the evening news was like, Nicole Kidman in a car accident. It might rain tomorrow. Like, wow, this is huge. Hard-hitting stuff we got out here.
Hope Nicole's okay. Kevin Gray. But yeah, what is Hackett still here for? I think at this point, it seems likely that Hackett is here for the rest of the season. What does he do here? I don't know. I guess, hang out with the guys in the locker room. He's not calling the plays. He doesn't really seem like he's in charge of game management. he's not seeing what's going on in the sidelines.
It's an
but I don't.
internship at this point.
Yeah,
The way he describes his day is like, oh, I go in this meeting. No, I don't really interject. I'm just kind of learning about what they're doing. Like, this is a well-paid internship that's going to have one hell of a severance package.
Yeah, things got really off the rail here. I guess part of me wonders, and it's the ownership group. I think George Paton doesn't have the final call on this head coach when he goes or not. I think if they'd have lost the Jacksonville game, he would have been gone because they'd had the bye week to kind of switch things over. But now that's out the window and you only have 6 games left. Well, how much is going to change over the final 6 games? You're just going to make things harder on yourself. I guess you could say that you could see an injection of life into the defense if Evero was made the head coach because
the long E comes first. Evero.
Forever Evero. That's how I remember it. But I guess there's a possibility that the defense would look less like they were sleepwalking than they did against the Panthers. But yeah, it's a tough one, no doubt. I think he's going to stick on though. For the rest of the season. Something that really kind of makes me concerned, and I'm wondering about this. There's been a lot of, and I don't want to blame or accuse anybody of being state media because I think that's cheap.
Like but I do all the time.
I mean, in the football realm, I made some connections in the league, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but some people connected to the Broncos, like on the surface, where we're definitely more, a little bit more separated. Not in the locker room every day, not talking to Patrick Smythe every day. There's been a sudden shift about some discourse where it's like, well, Hackett's, had just as bad of a start as the last few coaches, and they all get a second year. It's been rough on Hackett this year with all the injuries. Things, most coaches don't get fired after 1 year from people who are connected to the team just over the last week or so. So I'm curious if there is, I think it's been horrible out there and it's not all on Hackett, no doubt, but he's definitely a large part of it. But the fact that there's some conversation coming all of a sudden that he might get a year 2 is like, weird.
I also think part of that is maintaining a relationship. Hackett's a young guy. It's a small world, and he's going to be in this business for a long time, and you were going to cross paths again. So throw him a lifeline. You'll have a source somewhere else for the rest of your life. So not buying it, man.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
Well, good. I'm not either, but I do think that there's been a weird.
That's where that comes down. It's like, listen, I'm going to provide you some cover. And when you end up over with I want to say Kansas City Chiefs, but who's a team? When you end up with the Baltimore Ravens as a quarterback consultant or something, I want to be able to pick up the phone and give you a call and, we can chat. That's all it is. It's relationship building, man.
I agree with you, but it is weird that the tone has changed so suddenly from multiple people connected to the team that I think it's just at least worth putting out there to follow to see how it continues here. And if the Broncos, let's say they finish 3-3 down the stretch, maybe there's a conversation. Let's say you beat Baltimore. Looked vulnerable this week, although I think they're going to come in and beat our butts this upcoming week.
They're going to be refocused now.
Yeah, and Trevor Lawrence played like a god in the fourth quarter, but is what it is. But Kevin Gray, morning guys. Nick and Scott, on to next year. I don't know what Hackett is still there for. Oh, we got this one. Kevin, always good to see you. Read you twice on there. Dave Glassman with the hearts coming in. Good to see you, Dave. We got Dilla777 coming in saying falling asleep in Cali. Oh, it must be raining there. Shake my head. Work at 1:30 Pacific. That's rough. But we're here at, I'm up at 5 a.m. to do these shows sometimes. So it's I get you. No, 5 a.m.'s easy. Little Ram Man coming in here saying good morning all. Go Broncos. Ryan Slavic. Good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Who can you realistically see as our next head coach and offensive coordinator if we somehow keep Evero? Any thoughts?
I mean, you go back to you interviewed 10 candidates last year. 10. How many of those are head coaches this year? Hackett was O'Connell.
Those are the only 2 that I can.
Only 2, so there was 8. Why you can go back to the wall, and especially Dan Quinn. That would be, I think, a front runner when you're talking about someone like that. Evero, I think, would be a candidate to come in. Usually, you want a fresh start, though. It's like when you had a season, and let's call it what it is. The season's been a monumental failure. You don't want to necessarily promote from within. That just seems kind of backwards. So we'll see. As far as, Tim Greenwood comes in and says, I believe Hackett will be here next year. That seems strange. And Nick, some people were picking up on this yesterday. You and I talked about this before the show yesterday morning, and then the name Jim Harbaugh came up again. Financially, college football has probably more money than the NFL. It's insane. Like I was thinking about that. I'm like, under the current structure, when everything's paid for, you don't have to pay your employees. Your revenue is still gigantic. What would Alabama football be worth on the open market? 10 billion? Michigan football, 10, 15 billion dollars.
Is Michigan the second most profitable
Ohio
program?
State and Michigan are 1 and 2 when it comes to fan base, like size and that type of stuff. It used to be Notre Dame was number one.
Texas
is
way
Michigan
up
and
there
Ohio
too.
State are a clear 1 and 2. Ohio State being number one, Michigan number two, somewhere in there. And then you get down into Texas, Alabama, Notre Dame, Florida, Georgia, those type teams. But the 1 and 2 as far as me, I used to have my friends before Urban Meyer got to Ohio State. It's like, why are they always talking Big Ten? Big Ten hadn't done anything in forever. The SEC is winning all these championships. I'm like, this is why. Because of the ratings. That's who pays the bills.
I mean, did you see the Fox News ratings for the Ohio State Michigan game this past week? It was up there with
probably huge. I mean, they're the two biggest fan bases. Y'all might remember Terrell Pryor. When I was doing recruiting, I had good friends. I went to a big SEC school, and people are like, "You do what for a living?" And after Terrell Pryor, which was like 08 or 09, the number one recruit in the country coming down to Ohio State and Michigan, I had friends' wives asking me, "Hey, where's Terrell Pryor going?" He kind of made recruiting mainstream. Unfortunately, I want to take care of some business here real quick.
Yeah, starting to stack up a bit.
As people are coming in here, Deanna Henry coming in says, "Morning, Nick and Scott. Disappointed in management about Hackett." So let me show something real quick. How do I haven't done this in so long. I don't remember how to get rid of this view. That's all right. It'll still show. We hadn't done this in a while, and these were the YouTube super chat rankings after going into last night. Now it's changed a little bit because Deanna and Ethan came in and threw down huge. But what's interesting to me on this is here's the top 7. Is Gary Palmer is making his move over from Facebook and has been doing YouTube stuff and has been huge. And then 2 completely new names, just new to as far as November goes. Deanna coming in and killing it for us like she's doing it right now. She said, "Morning, Nick and Scott. Disappointed in management about Hackett." And then FA coming in. Then we've got some friends. I don't want to say old friends. Some friends we've had a while in Naj and Ethan and Michaela and Garth Knight coming in. So I log every single super chat that comes in, whether it's $50 from Deanna or whether it's $2 from someone else. And I see every single one of you, and we appreciate everything that y'all do for the show. Otherwise, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here. We would find other ways to help earn a living. We enjoy it. We love it. And that's why but we're here because of folks like you. So thank you very much. Any comments on Deanna's disappointed? Because I'm with you, Nick. I thought it could happen yesterday. And if it didn't, I think he's here for the rest of the season. If you weren't going to fire him yesterday, there's no reason to fire him over the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, they're just going to let it play out. This season's a lost cause anyway. Hopefully you figure something out there. I mean, people are like, "Oh, why don't you just use the Kubiak playbook?" I don't think people understand what goes into installing new plays. Like if you were going to install, let's say, 3 new plays, that would take a whole practice. And then you're not doing any of the scouting or game planning for that next appointment. Install takes a bit to work out there. So it's probably going to keep the playbook, probably going to keep things similar with Hackett and going to ride the season out. It's already a lost season. You're playing for pride at this point. You're playing so the Seahawks don't have a top 3 pick. Definitely disappointing. Hopefully they get it right this season. Also, again, I don't think all of it is on Hackett. I mean, obviously the injuries are a big part of it. George Paton deserves some blame for this. And then Russell Wilson's playing like a bottom 5 quarterback in the entire NFL right now, which is unbelievable. But I mean, this last game, I understand that the offensive line is struggling, but they were running the ball for like a good yards per carry in this one. Russell Wilson's, not stepping up in the pocket. He's not seeing guys that are open. It's scary times right now, considering the contract. And Yeah, we'll see. And speaking of George Paton, thank you so much, Deanna. I see you got another super coming in here, but we're going to get the Coach Chris first. As Scott and I both click on it, talking about George Paton here. It says George Paton needs to go. He's had 2 years on the job and we've regressed each year. His draft capital is questionable at best and his trades have looked awful. No one is looking at this from the top. Something the lot. I don't know what that means.
I get it. I get it, Coach Chris. Yes, I get it.
Yeah, I think that not all his trades have been bad. I think that Von Miller trade, when you were out of it to get a second and third round pick, was a good move. I mean, imagine what your draft class looks like last year if you didn't do that. So I think that's a positive you have going for you. I will say that Nick Bonito has looked not great. He's had a few good pass plays, but this last week he looked horrible, not only against the run, but also as a pass rusher. There was a few plays where like his speed rusher on the outside didn't work and he just like stood up and stopped. And it's like, oh my God, like what's going on? You got to do something out there. And some of the contract signings too. I mean, Tom Compton, we haven't seen yet. Maybe he got in for a snap this last week. I don't remember. We haven't seen Billy Turner, Randy Gregory. Oh man, what a shock. He played 3 games and the guy who's missed most of the games of his career is out. So obviously looked great when he was out there and the season got off the rails. So maybe they're just playing it easy with him, but it's George Paton definitely deserves a lot of blame for where the season has gone. That being said, I think it's one of the situations where it's like you made this bed, now sit in it, because with the Russell Wilson contract and everything, I think that they're going to make him write it out at least another year. Maybe he gets another head coaching hire. I think they give him one more cycle to at least improve the team and be in the playoff hunt next season. But he's definitely on the hot seat, and I wouldn't be shocked if he was out. But I think it's less likely than it is likely to happen.
What are some of the big trades? I mean, you had to make some of those trades, because the team where the team is, which is an indictment on Paton itself, to your point. But being where your team is, I thought you did really well on Bradley Chubb. I think you did really well on Von Miller. Some of the guys, most of the signings were pretty low risk as far as cap management goes. Now, I would have liked to have seen you swing for the fences a little bit more on the offensive line instead of going cheap and injured and discounts, but the contracts, those haven't been too bad. Even Gregory's contract, Randy Gregory, I always forget I have to scroll down to injured reserve. He is 5.6 on the cap this year. It was structured to help protect you against risk. It's a 2-year deal. Next year it'll be a little expensive, so you're hoping, but this year it's 5.6 on the cap.
Yeah.
The 3 big strikes right now are Nathaniel Hackett, the Russell Wilson trade, and the Russell Wilson contract extension. Yeah. And any one of those 3 going as bad as it's gone are fireable offenses.
Yep.
Any one of those 3, all 3, and you start lining them up together, Chris, and his seat's warm without a doubt. I agree with you, and we appreciate you coming in and getting up early with us in your bathrobe. No, just kidding. I know that's the Lebowski.
The dude.
And Ethan coming in, our good friend of the show, one of the OGs for Broncos for Breakfast, been with us from the beginning as we're coming up on finishing year 2, Nick.
Time flies.
Interesting, no players have publicly voiced support for Hackett or Wilson. At least I haven't seen any. Have they been asked? Really, I feel like, I go through most of these quotes, and I don't see that they're being asked too much about it. They're not offering it up, and hopefully they're not on social media. I know they are, but the Lamar Jackson one. But there's absolutely no reason in the world they should ever look in their comments or mentions on social media. They should be handing their login to a personal manager, so they're not dealing with that type of stuff. So I don't read the newspapers. Well, the newspapers were kind compared to what social media is. So hopefully they're not seeing that too much. And I haven't seen them ask too much DWI guys specifically about, do you feel like you're playing for your coach out there, or did you expect it to go this bad? I haven't seen those types of questions. It doesn't mean they haven't been there, but this is a sentiment that's going around. It's like, listen, nobody's taking up for these guys either. And that speaks volumes. I always said I try and judge not what I see, but how the players react, because Deion Sanders was one of those guys. Deion Sanders was, especially in the 80s, with his flair, was a very polarizing figure, and you would have hated him if he wasn't playing on your team. But everywhere he went, his teammates loved him. And I'm like, all right, I'll cut him some slack. That's you're a good teammate. That's much more important than are you high stepping, as you're returning a punt for a touchdown or showboating. Do your teammates respect you? So that this point becomes very, very valid when it comes to how is this team going to stay together?
For sure. And also, I don't think the Broncos have any really outspoken players like that with like the flair and the flamboyance in the positions where you typically see that. Like if Emmanuel Sanders was here
and
right now,
anymore, one of them's on the practice squad at
yeah,
and they're doing this to Draymond right now.
Yeah, yep. That's
and Shelby's up in Seattle.
Yeah, so like it's Justin Simmons playing the safety position. No, he's a company guy. Patrick Surtain looks like he doesn't want to be in front of the camera, like Justin Herbert-esque. Cortland Sutton's also quiet. Javonte Williams is exceedingly quiet. So you don't really have anybody like that right now, which, better or worse. But these quotes, I think, will start coming out after the season. Once some teams, get severed or like hindsight, there's going to be interesting stuff that comes out, no doubt. And also, the more this Russell Wilson experiment goes south, the more things are starting to get leaked. So keep an eye out, keep an ear out for that. Bama X, good morning, Broncos country. Good to see you. Also says DWI, it's one of those blatant things to take note of. It's the same thing a lot of people were saying when he left Seattle. All those players came out to voice their issues, but none spoke up in support. I think Tyler Lockett kind of did speak up in support. Also Marshawn Lynch somewhat as well, but the defensive guys definitely not. And it's rough. I mean, there's got to be some animosity for a quarterback who's playing this poorly when the team invested in him, when the Broncos have been this bad this long, and he's getting special treatment left and right.
Like big one right there, Nick.
Like if you are playing like Patrick Mahomes is right now, then you know what? You can break all the rules. You can be privileged. But Russell Wilson is not playing like that, and not even close to that. And I'm curious if the offense is going to be the second floor office is going to be reallocated to somebody else. I'm curious if his own trainers are going to be allowed in there. I mean, obviously his Sierra and his kids, having free reign and practice, probably maybe dial back a little bit. They need to have somebody come in here and, not just be like, oh, anything you want, Russ. This is like, you're part of the team. This is what we're doing. Be here at this time and be engaged.
Yeah, I don't believe in special rules. It creates resentment. The whole do as I say, not as I do thing. Yeah, that one bothers me. That one has always bothered me.
I think if you are a special player, I think the other guys understand who butters your bread. We're the only reason we're getting paid and where we're at is because
that's usually where it comes though, Nick, is in paychecks.
Yeah.
Not I have a different set of rules. Well, he broke curfew, but so did he. And they understand that punishment might be different. Yeah. I went through that my freshman year. I got it. We all got knocked down a peg because we jumped a fence when we were supposed to be running. And everybody, the starters didn't start. One of the guys got benched, and I was a reserve as a freshman. I got moved to JV. We all went down a peg. I get it. Yeah. But again, resentment. It's gonna harbor resentment. And you can, like you said, Nick, you can bury some of that while things are going well. But when you start getting irritated about other things in that way, and what are they doing here? You start getting upset about those things. I agree with you.
We got Deanna coming and saying, we appreciate you guys. Go Broncos. Deanna, back-to-back 50s. We appreciate the heck out of you. Thank you so much. That's big time in here with all the support. Want to say hello to some people coming in here real quick because we always like to say hello. Good morning to Bama X. Good to see you. Ashley Monique, I don't recognize this name, saying we probably can beat LA and in Denver if they score points. I think we play in LA, not in Denver, so maybe that changes things there. It's Christmas Day. So that's the Island of Misfit Toys game if I ever saw it. Beating the Chiefs, not a chance. Never say never. The Colts went into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. I think it was an Arrowhead too. So anything can happen in a weird football game in a single game sample size, but very exceedingly unlikely. JJ saying, good morning, Nick and Scott. Good to see you. CC saying, feel bad for the England fans have to deal with Gareth Southgate ball. Scott, you probably understand what that means more than I do.
Gareth Southgate's the England manager, and he's overly conservative with a bunch of young flair players. They think they are stifling this creativity, though they have had more success under Southgate than they've had in recent years. But part of that will be talked about. Yeah, but look at these players he has. Yeah. He's still underachieving.
Always underachieving. That's
super conservative. He's really conservative.
Maybe we can send Nathaniel Hackett over there. We'll do a trade. US Dave coming in. Go Broncos. See Beaston. Good to see you. Michael Ronquillo, always one of the favorites in the show. Good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. Also our guy, Gary Palmer coming in. GP. saying good morning, Nick and Scott. Tried to send this 3 times and screwed up every time. Not a techie. Go Broncos. Well, you know what? Third time's the charm. Actually, you sent 1999 3 times, so thank you so much. No, I'm just kidding, Gary. We appreciate you so much and coming in support. Also, unofficial sponsor of the show with the Lion Coffee out here, Patrick, out there in Hawaii. We appreciate you so much.
Talk about
Patrick,
getting up early.
I know. Patrick wants to hang out and drink coffee. I get it. Benjamin Hayward, good morning, Broncos country. We had a disappointing season, but we'll bounce back next year. Oh, man, Benjamin, I don't know.
There's the first one. There's the first big. We both had one of those yesterday.
I don't know if we're going to bounce back next year. And this might be really dark, but maybe one of the best things the Broncos could do next season is to have the season be bad again. Russell Wilson be obviously terrible, and the Broncos get the first or second overall pick and take one of those crown jewel quarterbacks in that upcoming class. Because right now it does seem like, and again, next year's quarterback class is always better. I would say that was true from last year's class to this year's class. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, maybe Anthony Richardson. It's a good class this year as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I think these quarterbacks will get taken down a notch. The more games they play, the more people microanalyze their games. It always happens this way. But you can see the tools and the traits and see that it is different with Drake May and Caleb Williams compared to CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, in my opinion. So maybe the best case for the Broncos next year is to be so bad that you get one of those quarterbacks and can go cheap there for a bit. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Albert Knoppers, time for K-Jack to have a lesser role. Other players need to step up. I think that would be the case if Caden Stearns hadn't injured his hip, and we might not see Caden Stearns the rest of the season with that hip injury.
Yeah, and it's a shame. And K-Jack, he's not playing very well.
No, he's old. He can't move.
He was diving in on plays, and I don't know. I don't want to say anybody like him would ever would shy away from contact, but he didn't seem as eager to go head to head with big running backs as I've seen in the past.
I mean, going from Derrick Henry to Josh Jacobs to Donta Foreman is that's got to be a ice tub kind of month there.
Yeah, I mean, what's 190 pounds? The guy was a corner, converted. Now he's he's a strong safety.
Yep. And we had some good years with him, but this is probably the last year with him. And I think you go cheap there next year with cheapish, with Simmons being expensive, but Caden Stearns on the other side.
K-Jack's dirt cheap.
He is dirt cheap, but
like $2 million or something. You're paying for a guy well past his prime. I mean, I feel like Moneyball. I'm not paying you for the guy you were. I'm paying you for the guy you are, which is $2 million at your starting safety for a veteran that's been around a while. That's a problem.
It is a problem. And I think if Caden Stearns was healthy right now, you'd already see a diminished role. But alas, the injuries do not just happen on the offensive side of the ball. Cristiano Roden coming in saying, good morning, guys. With Hackett, I only expect 2 more random wins. Maybe the LA teams. Definitely possible. The Broncos always seem to play the Chargers tough no matter what their record is. So we'll see. Although if the Chargers are playing for a playoff spot and the Broncos are playing for nothing, might be fun to play spoiler. I don't know. We'll see. Mike Woodward, morning all. Good to see you, Mike. We also have Joseph coming in saying when Melvin got released, he actually had positive things to say about the coaching staff. Yes, he did. He's and the players as well. The locker room. I mean, things didn't go well here. The only people he badmouthed on the way out was the fans somewhat. I didn't take too much of it personally because the fans did give him hell, but some of it deserved. But I don't know. I'm not wishing him success in Kansas City, though.
Falling Sloth says, Scott, having flashbacks of certain players, Falcons players getting off the plane first in Denver, treating players different can cause problems for sure. I don't know what you're talking about. As far as being in Denver, I know it caused a problem when the owner, Arthur Blank, was wheeling out Michael Vick on a wheelchair. That raised some eyebrows when the owner was doing that. But, that's, again, that ends up causing resentment. And that's universal. Again, when someone acts, you see people like fly off the handle about something that doesn't really matter. And you'll be like, okay, what's really bothering them? Those are the kind of things that just they bury. You were talking about when things are going well, the preseason, it's a honeymoon period. I'm going to sit that one down, Nick. I'm going to my kids weren't allowed here. They had to go sit in playroom. Okay, I've got a personal trainer and all these things. They're not allowed here. Those are the kind of things you bury in the honeymoon period that just sit there and simmer until you're 3-8, and then things get really testy.
Yeah. Speaking of testy, Kayleon Green, whatever the heck that means. Kayleon, always good to see you. We appreciate you coming in. We got Boozy Simmons coming in here on Facebook. Make sure if you guys are joining us on Facebook today to click the thumbs up, heart reaction, anything like that. Boozy comes in and says, we are stuck with Wilson for at least the next 2 years. We need a new coach in place ASAP to see if it's really Russ playing that bad or if it's in fact coaching. So there was a really good article released by Jason, I don't remember his last name, on Over the Cap, where he dug into some of the real specific details of Russell Wilson. And there's a clause in Russell Wilson's contract that is not captured very, very well in Spot Rack or Over the Cap or anything like that, where his base salary for 2024, the $37 million, becomes guaranteed the 5th year in the league year in 2024. So that means that even though the cap hit would be monstrous, if you want to get out of this contract, your bleep or get off the pot situation is probably after next season. Now, it would be a lot. I know Scott is under the opinion. Well, I'll let you say it. I'll let you save it. But if it's this bad, I think you probably just rip the Band-Aid off and take your medicine and take the dead cap hit as designated as a June 1st release over 2 seasons. And also you can move some of that cap actually to the 2023 as well. So it'd be 2023, 2024, and 2025 if you have a little bit of extra cap next season. And move on from there. It would be unfortunate because you'd be definitely limiting yourself, but you'd be limiting yourself if Russ's play continues to be this bad and you are still on the hook for it in 2026, 2027. I'd rather get it over with if it's this bad still.
Yeah, there's a lot of information. I put the link in the chat in it, but it all boils down to what we've been saying for the last 3 weeks to a month. You've got $107 million next year. How do you want to split that up? This way or this way? If you wait another year, it's $87 million. How do you want to split that up? This way or this way? That's what these 1,500 words all say. The money's the same, dude. The money's the same.
But the money changes because it's the roster bonus. The actual, so right now it looks like it's not guaranteed.
Look at the charts and for the next 2 seasons. The 3rd season is what you're talking about. So 2025 is where it makes a difference. So the next 2 seasons, it's 107 next year and it's 87 in 2024. That doesn't change.
But
so for the next 2 seasons, it does not change.
The caveat, though, is that 2025 money becomes guaranteed 5th league year of 2024. So you have to make a decision the year before 2025. So it's actually the end of next season where that 2025 money becomes guaranteed. So the decision point isn't after 2025. It's after next season. Because if you don't make that decision after next year, you are on the hook also for not just 2024, but also 2025, because that's when that $37 million becomes guaranteed.
But then if you guaranteed it and you paid him to go away,
yeah,
it might be cheaper to do that because, again, the dead money is the same. It's just that the whole point of this is the dead money is the same. How do you want to try and break it up?
Yeah.
And when you're talking about the guaranteed money becomes at 2025, it's still a fraction of what it is over the next 2 seasons. You still have options. Do I want to eat $40 million over 2 years? Maybe. Yeah. I'm not eating 90. I'm not eating 107. So those are the 2 seasons. So after the next 2 years, I've said, okay, you've got options. But these next 2 seasons, to rip the Band-Aid off and say, I'm going to eat 107 of dead cap money, that doesn't make any sense to me. I'd practice squad him or something because he only has a cap hit of 22 next year. He's got a cap hit of 35 next year. Even if I spread that across 2 seasons, no matter how you spread it, his cap hit is less than his dead cap hit. So he's a Bronco the next 2 years.
Maybe. I think it's possible if it's this bad again this year that they take the medicine.
Unless you might not let him come to work.
Yeah.
You put him on non-injury list or something. But and then he might say, okay, release me and I'll pay you back. It's happened before. Yeah. I'll return some of this signing bonus. Release me. Let's redo this contract. I'm going to give you $50 million back that's been sitting in escrow because you gave me $150 million. Mm-hmm. Here's 50 back. Release me. Yep. That could happen. But one of your options, the nuclear option for the Denver Broncos is I'm going to non-injury this guy and use a spot for my 53. And you're going to collect a check. You're basically in retirement. We are retiring you. That's the Broncos' nuclear option.
Yeah, well, will be interesting to see how it plays out. I think, regardless, they do have the ability to move on from him after this season, but that would be ridiculous. I think the way the contract sets up, it makes much more sense. If it's going to happen at all, I think it's probably happening in 2020 after the 2023 season. If not then it's probably 2020 after 2025. So just the way because that 37 million, the dead cap hit increases by 37 million if you wait until after the fifth day of the league year in 2024. So really interesting, man. This contract stuff is not Scott and I's not, at least not mine. I can't speak for Scott, but not the most fun. I prefer the team building aspect when it comes to the player, the talent acquisition.
I don't mind the money. I don't mind the money, but it's a hell of a lot better than the stupid MLS where I have no interest in trying to figure out their salary cap rules. None.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we traded this player for allocation money. What the hell is that? This one's easier, and again, like I said, the salary cap's a myth. No, it's not. The salary cap is a myth if you've got good young players that are playing well. The salary cap becomes very, very real when you've got guys you want to get rid of. Then it becomes very real.
Just ask the Packers having to trade Devontae
Andrew
Adams.
comes and he says, what if he retires cap-wise? Now, this may have changed, but looking back at someone like Barry Sanders or Calvin Johnson, they had to return a prorated version of their signing bonus, and they came off the cap. That's, if I remember right,
I think you're right.
That's what happened. So if he retires, he comes off the cap. He ain't going to come off the cap, not with $100 million guaranteed still coming his way.
No way. He's after that bag, which I don't blame him. Go get what you can, even if it's at the expense of the team that you're on. Greg Smith, top of the morning, Broncos for breakfast. Good to see you, Greg. We appreciate you coming in. Lance asking, who do we play this Sunday? Denver stays on the East Coast. Never good for Denver playing in the East time zone. And they play at Baltimore, who's coming off a very tough game loss versus the Jaguars, where it looked like it clicked for Trevor Lawrence. He's always had the tools. He doesn't have the world's most nuclear arm like Patrick Mahomes or Josh. I don't think it's the level of Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. But
I'd have to see fastball ratings, but I think he's got an arm every bit as good as Mahomes.
I don't think he's got the elasticity or the ability to throw
different
off platform.
Yeah, Mahomes isn't pure arm strength that makes him. His is his ability to get that same velocity from so many different arm angles and accuracy from so many different arm angles
and slots and platforms. I mean, he plays quarterback like a shortstop,
or a point guard.
Yeah, God, he's so good. God bless it. One of the positives, I joked about it the other day, but by the time the Broncos are out of this cap hell and Russell Wilson stuff, if he continues to play this bad, Mahomes will be that much closer to retirement. Man. Clinton Watson coming in $20 saying, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Clinton. Thank you so much for supporting us on here and making it a little bit merrier over here as well. Those who are still here aren't fair weather types. Maybe they are masochists, but you know what? I'm not here to shame. Still proud to be a fan, rain or shine. Love y'all. Thank you for being a bright spot of the season. Well, Christian, you guys are really the bright spot of this season for me. So we appreciate you so much. And as Kaleon says here, Nick, all we can do is laugh.
Oh, and Clinton, I saw somebody come in yesterday and asking, like, have y'all given up already? Are you real fans or not? I'm like, I can give up on a season and still be a fan. I'm like, I can be realistic about where my team is headed and still be a fan. So I'm not going to tell you how to fan. Yeah. And, if you're here in this chat, you're not just a fan, you're a diehard. I always said that, being in the subscription business, it's Scout and 24/7 for most of my professional career. So we cater to the lunatic fringe of sports fans. And I say that with love because I'm head lunatic. So we're a different level of fandom here. And you guys aren't going to stop being Broncos fans. You'll outlast these guys. I've said this before, but it's a job, for these players and these coaches, it's a job. It's a step along the way. The owners really are the closest ones that you can relate to are the owners, and not even this case anymore because they're just, spreadsheet ledgers and an investment. But like the old timer owners that have been there for 40 years, that's you as a fan. You're going to be here while these guys come and go. So it's been a longer blip than you would hope, but you will outlast this regime. You will outlast all of these players. Things will be different. And you hope it gets better. That's why we're here.
Yep. Yep, it will. Ryan Thompson. Morning, fellas. Good to see you. Ryan says, we should go after a decent QB this offseason to have them compete with Russ for the starting spot. I think you're a year early on that, Ryan. Personally, I think that you do have to go after a quarterback this upcoming draft cycle, but I think it's more of the day 3 conversation to replace the backup. And if Russell Wilson is injured or playing this poorly, then you have an option better than a borderline rosterable quarterback in Brett Rippon that you can turn to. So I think that's the option. This is a very deep quarterback class this upcoming season. There's a lot of options. I'm really excited to dig into the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl, but there's a lot of names out there. So I think the Broncos day 3, you're looking for the backup of the future. 2024, especially with that clause in Wilson's contract, becomes a season where you're definitely in a conversation there. And also, especially if you're considering exercising that nuclear option on Russell Wilson's contract, that means things are horrible next season. And that means you probably have an early pick. So all those things together point towards next year probably being the year where you would go a young quarterback. Furthermore, rookie quarterback contract somewhat offsets the dead cap cost and gives you a little bit of an out for the roster building. Granted, you lose the biggest advantage of that rookie quarterback contract, but it's the reality we find ourselves in.
Yeah, you say if I've got 50 million invested into my quarterback position, I can live with that. But he said a decent quarterback.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could use a $5 million, $6 million veteran to come in, and when things are going horribly wrong, you can say, yeah, Russell's injured, his shoulder's bothering him. We're gonna sit him this week, and that's what you can say publicly. And behind the scenes and to your team, you can say, dude, you got to get it together. This isn't working. This isn't working. This isn't working. And you're not going back in until you do this, this, and this. But you really can't do that right now because you don't have a quarterback and you don't have another NFL quarterback on the roster. So a decent quarterback next year that can come in and have Russ at least look over his shoulder a little bit when he's playing poorly or is banged up and can sit and get healthy, if that's part of the case, then I agree with you 100%. Because you've got one guy out there right now. And, we talked about, Nick used a joke, what's plan A versus plan B, but you're 3-8 right now. Now it's just a matter of, can I get somebody serviceable out there to playoffs and a winning season is gone halfway through the year. Can I get somebody else out there to hopefully kickstart my investment?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, God, we saw what drafting a quarterback did for Aaron Rodgers. Although Jordan Love looked pretty damn good out there. I'm curious. Packers are going to be very interesting this offseason. Jesse Fraley coming in with a very cute doggo. Big fan of the corgis. It looks like a corgi in my opinion. But when we first got my Golden Retriever Summit, we had a puppy corgi about the same age across the hall named Cannoli. And what a great name for a corgi. Cannoli and Summit hanging out there. So big fan of the corgos, saying, Jesse coming in and saying, given the way that we are hamstrung for the next few years, both financially and by Russ, it seems like getting a quality head coach is going to be difficult at best. Seems like good coaches would want to avoid. I think that's true, but you have 2 options here as the ownership group. You can, quote unquote, overpay, where, I mean, look what Hackett's going to go. He's going to get 1 year and then get paid $35 million to be cut and be out there. And the Broncos are still going to be paying for Vic Fangio as well. Money talks. And even if it's a bad situation, that means that I can be fired and not have to do anything, or be an analyst for a year and get money. That's a great option. So money talks. There's only 32 head coaching positions. A lot of these guys will jump, and you might not get the cream of the crop. The other one here that people don't want to hear, but it's certainly possible. The ownership group might decide that in order to get the head coach they want, you might have to fire or relinquish some of George Paton's power and give that head coach personnel power. I think, like we talked about Jim Harbaugh earlier, would Jim Harbaugh want to come here? Maybe he doesn't have to recruit anymore. That's a full-time job. He's done great at Michigan. I think that only happens though if yeah.
But it's Michigan. You don't recruit. I had that conversation with a coach one time. He was a Georgia coach. I'm like, all you have to do is show up. He's like, that's why you recruited Georgia.
Yeah. I mean, you still have to go in there to Ohio and stuff, but the big thing is, I think if you're bringing in a coach like that in order to offset some of the constraints, I guess as we'll call it right now with the current roster setup, you might have to give that head coach personnel control, which is always concerning. I don't think there's been many cases outside of Bill Belichick where the head coach has had personnel control and it's worked out very well. I like to have the separation of power there because the front office is always thinking about the future. What does the next 3 years look like? Where the head coach is like, what can I do right now? It's there, and they're in conflict, and you have to have that balance between them.
And it's different skill sets. You know, I've seen coaches and players that can't identify a player for anything. When we're talking about, this guy's going to be this in the next level, and this guy's going to be this on the next level. I'm like, what are you watching, dude? You're out of your mind. It's completely different skill sets. And again, I don't want the guy who's got to coach my player also sitting down with his agent and negotiating his contract. Speaking of animosity, that's why players try and separate themselves from that. I want to focus on my play. I don't want to get into a heated debate about a clause in my contract and end up being pissed off, because in a good negotiation, everybody should be happy, but everybody should be a little mad too. I don't want that for my player, and I don't want that for my coach. I don't want that carrying over. Our legal expert, Ethan, the DWI guys, he says when a player retires, his salary no longer counts against a cap. However, any bonuses, signing roster, etc., do count against the cap, but the team has the ability to get prorated amount back from the player if they choose. So they can go after that money.
And that's why everybody kind of
did with Barry Sanders.
They did, and Calvin Johnson, and people really shillelagh'd the Lions for that.
I think they did. Go after that money. So the Broncos go after Russell Wilson? You bet your ass they would. You think the ownership group really cares if they get a little bad PR? Right now they get it. They'd get in trouble if they didn't go after some of that money to try and help the team.
Yeah. Little Rain Man coming in saying, what's the quarterback draft looking like for 2024? We already talked a little bit about Drake May at UNC and Caleb Williams at USC. Those are two ones to obviously keep an eye on. A few others. I'm a little bit disappointed by this, but according to Tony Pauline, who works in the NFL draft circle, yeah, Scott, don't make that face out loud, but he has some connections in the league. He'll be down there at the Senior Bowl, and it sounds like he reported that Anthony Richardson is leaning towards going to school. I hope going to the NFL draft. Anthony Richardson is the extremely talented, toolsy quarterback at Florida who's still a little bit erratic as a passer, but he's probably got like the best arm and the best athlete in the draft if he does come out. Very similar to a Cam Newton skill set. And I'm not just saying that, like he's got that natural velocity and frame and athleticism. But if he comes out, he'll probably be a borderline first-round pick because he's been erratic. But if he comes back to college next year and puts it together, he's got a chance to be number one overall. His tools are that good. So keep an eye on for him. And then you also have J.J. McCarthy at Michigan. He's still a little bit erratic, but very good athlete, very loose arm. He's a good player. And then Quinn Ewers at Texas. So those are the 5 quarterbacks right now that I'd have my eye on for next year, with Anthony Richardson having an asterisk.
Quinn Ewers sounds too much like Quinn Miners. Can't do that. We can't do that one. If you start talking about borderline on quarterbacks, that means they're going in the higher than you think. They typically, except for this last draft class, they typically get drafted higher than you would expect.
And somebody falls in love with the tools or something. Mm-hmm. The thing that changes this a bit for me, and especially with quarterbacks, but because their contracts are different, but the way the contracts, like there's almost like a logarithmic decay in how quickly the top of the money in the first round falls off to like the further you go down the draft. And you have NIL money to fall back on in college right now. So it's a little different than it used to be years ago. People used to be like, go get that money as soon as you can. Well, now you have to make the conversation where like, okay, let's say I'm getting a day 2 grade right now, which means I could be taking anywhere from 20 to 50 in the draft as a day 2 grade, because there's not 32 round 1 grades in the draft, everybody. But the difference in money that you can get being drafted 50th overall to 10 overall is generational. I mean, you're making almost 4 times as much money, I believe, from those slots. So it's a little bit different now, and there's not as much risk because you do have the NIL to fall back on. So will be interesting. And Scott, we got to talk about our main topic here. Are the Broncos going to win any more games?
Third round pick Desmond Ridder, his total money this year, Desmond Ridder was right at $1 million. 1.7 with everything, but it's basically $1 million a year as a third round pick.
And the signing
quarterback at the university, a starting quarterback at the University of Florida can make that in NIL.
Yeah.
And you're better off staying there. And I love it. It's great for the kids.
Yep.
Let's not pretend that these aren't, like I just mentioned at the top of the show, that this isn't humongous business. You know, the University of Florida and the way the structure is set up, where they don't have to pay their employees, their stadiums are all paid for. They are bigger business. They're worth more as an independent franchise than an NFL team. So I'm happy for the kids because they haven't had a bunch of options in the realm of American football, other than you're going to go to college, you're going to play at least 3 years, and then you're going to go where we tell you when you get to the NFL. All right. And we're just conditioned to that. We just think that's how it is. And that's great. We're happy when we get told what to do. Anyway.
Adam coming in. I was arguing with my friend who said I should keep faith in my team. I told him I'm also a football fan, which means I can evaluate the whole team without bias and not be delusional and about how bad my team is. Tell your friend not to gatekeep. If you want to be the rah-rah, everything's awesome fan, we're going to win every week, then God bless you. If you want to be the hypercritical fan, oh my God, this is the worst team we ever saw, then God bless you. Anywhere in between. I'm not going to tell you how to fan or not fan. I think that's the only way to be a bad fan, to go make things personal with other fans and players and whatnot, be better than that. 2, gatekeeping. Don't be a gatekeeper. So tell your friend not to gatekeep. Deanna coming in here. We both clicked it. We need offensive line. Yes, we do. The Broncos need a new left guard. They need a new center. They probably need a new right tackle as well. I would sign a guard in the draft. I would probably sign a cheap veteran center that's like on his last leg kind of thing, and then draft an interior offensive lineman and draft a right tackle as well, and bring back Cam Fleming. But you need a lot.
Yeah, I've said we could see as many as 5 new faces next year. I think I set the over-under at 5 on this team. If you're talking 9 players on an active 53, 9 offensive linemen, 5 wouldn't be out of 5 new ones would not be out of the question, out of the equation. So, I mean, I think you need a new left guard, you need a new center, you need a new right tackle. There's 3 right there, and then you need competition for those guys. So go for a bunch of numbers and see what happens. If you have to practice squad a couple draft picks, so be it. But you should draft at least 3 linemen, and you should sign 3 linemen in free agency. Yep. You can do all that for cheap. You can do all that for relatively cheap.
And I'm a proponent of bringing Cam Fleming back. He's not great, but if he could be your swing tackle, when he's healthy, he was good this season. He's not playing healthy right now. I was told playing at about 75%, which God bless him, because otherwise you're playing Quinn Bailey out there, which I'll take Cam Fleming at 75 versus your 6-string tackle, Quinn Bailey. Thank you so much, Deanna, man. Coming in. That's your third 51 today. That's incredible. We appreciate you. Scott, so the Broncos' final 6 games this season, we play at Baltimore this week. Any chance the Broncos win that game at Baltimore?
There's a chance, but even if I didn't just witness that team quit against the Panthers, I still would have taken the Ravens. This is not a team that you match up with well against. We saw it last year, and it's in Baltimore. This is a team that wants to go smash mouth and beat you up on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And when that has happened in the 2 years I've watched this team, the Broncos have folded.
Yeah.
So no, I would handily choose the Baltimore Ravens in this one.
I think the Ravens offense is actually pretty inept right now. They don't have any real options in the passing game. Deshaun Jackson is their best receiver, and he's
Can they get 16 points.
Yeah, and can they get 16? It's probably, but I'm saying that I think it could be one of those games where it's really close at the end, and then something breaks your way and it goes towards Denver. I mean, I really hated how Carolina matched up with Denver because they were so much more talented in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And we saw that play itself out in this Bronco game. I do like a lot of these Ravens players, but I think the Broncos have more of a puncher's chance in this game than people will think.
Baltimore's an 8-point favorite. That's as big a line as I've seen this year for the Broncos.
I'm betting the under. That's the only thing I know for sure. But I think the Broncos got more of a chance than people will think, because this Ravens offense right now is it's lacking any sort of teeth in the passing game. Right now, their only play is Lamar go do something. And this late in the season, one bad hit, dings them up a bit, and the offense is completely toothless then. I mean, they don't have any receivers. Their second most explosive pass catcher in that offense is their 300-pound fullback, Ricard. I mean, it's wild. It's not very good. So I think they got a chance there. I think they will lose, but I think it's going to be more of a game than people think. Then at home against Kansas City, Denver played Kansas City really tough, even when they were bad with Vic Fangio. I'm curious to see how this defense looks, though, because it's a little bit different schematically than when you had Fangio, against this Patrick Mahomes team and this reinvented Kansas City offense.
No, Kansas City wins.
Okay, I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, we can again. You never say never. It's the NFL. There's always a chance, but I mean, come on. If we're betting on this one, I saw Georgia Tech, and they are running that BPI says 99% chance, 99.9% chance of Georgia win. I'm like, y'all have heard me say this before. I'm like, all right, put your money where your mouth is. All right, you give me 1 in 1,000, and I'll bet $10. I'll take $10 and for a $10,000 payout on Georgia Tech. So yeah, I'll take a $10 for a $10,000 payout on the Broncos on that. Sure, there's a chance, but realistically, no. This is a win, a game you chalk up as a win for the Chiefs.
Yep. Yeah, it's for sure. The next two games, though, probably the most likely for the Broncos to come out with a win. You play Arizona. I think it's Arizona and then the Rams. So Arizona at home. You have back-to-back home games against Chiefs, and then Arizona. Arizona is a team that is. You talk about the players not bad-mouthing the coaches here in Denver. They're starting to bad-mouth coaches in Arizona. Sean Kugler, former Broncos offensive line coach, was fired Sunday morning before their game Monday when they got beat up by the 49ers. They look bad again this week. Actually, not bad. They came down to the last play of the game against the Chargers, but this is a bad Cardinals team as well. A bad defense, a team that has invested, I think, 2 or 3 first-round picks in the linebacker position, and their defense looks terrible because they can't get after the passer and they have no cornerbacks. So they've really their general manager needs to be fired for sure. He's been horrible. But I think you got a chance against the Cardinals, and then the Rams are dreadful as well.
That's a flip of the coin. Which team? That one just depends on which team shows up. They're both.
Oh my God!
I'm gonna just go here of this one.
Wow.
But yeah,
Jesus Christ.
The Arizona's in just as bad a straits right now as Denver is. That one's, and they're probably not as talented. But talent coming in red hot here is Ethan on the DWI guys at 250 pounds. It's about $300 to you and me. Of the 3 colossal offseason mistakes by Paton, the Hackett hire, the Wilson trade, and the extension on Russell Wilson when he still had 2 years left on his contract, one was truly avoidable. I agree. We always talk about cost control here with rookies, but Broncos had Wilson for $25 million this year and at $24 million next, and Paton signed him before the season. Patience would have served well now. Again, I agree with you 100%. Of the 3, I think I called it like car crash, train wreck, and Titanic sinking. 2 of those, at the time, I'm not going to regrade in hindsight. The Russell Wilson trade seemed to make sense. I mean, he's coming off a Pro Bowl year. He was a Pro Bowler last year. And still had like 26 and 7, despite having an injury. He was that move made sense. Okay. Hackett. All right. He's my problems with Hackett was you're not calling plays and you've got an Uber quarterback. That scares me. And y'all know why. I've seen it with everybody that's come out of the Bill Belichick tree, from Charlie Weiss to Josh McDaniels. That scared me, but all right. He's, he'll come in and you've got the tools, and he wants to go downfield. He wants to be wide open. This should be fun. Okay. But I got 2 years on a deal on a quarterback that's in a completely new environment. I got 2 years left.
Yeah.
Let's feel this out a little bit. And I said it for Russell Wilson's sake too, Nick.
Yeah.
Because this is your last contract. Make sure this is the right fit for you. You've got time. Make sure this is the right fit for you. Make sure this is the right fit. Because yes, I might be able to save $10 million a year if I do it now. But as I've said before, what's more expensive? Missing is expensive, as we're finding out.
They're in trouble. I was listening to the Athletic podcast, which they do a great job. They do a weekly or daily podcast out there, and they do Nate Tice, former son of Mike Tice, and Robert Mays do 3 or 4 episodes a week, and they talked about the Broncos situation. They said that this Broncos team is the biggest flop and most disappointing team of the last decade, considering they had 17-1 Super Bowl odds before the season started. They're heading to be one of the 7 first-year head coaches fired in the last decade. All the other ones had 100-1 Super Bowl odds, other than this Denver team at 17-1. And then the Russell Wilson trade in the contract. So they said the situation in Denver is dire, not many ways out. So hopefully it gets better. But yeah, this is the worst offense since the 2000 Browns, which is unbelievable. I know points are down across the league thanks to Vic Fangio and his defensive tenants kind of taking root across the league. I think schemes have changed because of what Vic Fangio did. And also because of Patrick Mahomes. I'd say it's a reaction to Patrick Mahomes as much as anything. But yeah, it's rough. And Ethan, God bless you, man. Goodness gracious. I don't even know what to say.
I mean,
So
I know what to say. Is it's humbling,
yeah,
and it's like I said, it's why we're here. So
yeah,
when throw us a like, because that's the little things that help a lot as well. But if you ever see Ethan, if you ever see Deanna, um, and a lot of the supporters that come in, Gary, I forgot who else has come in now that I'm thinking about it. Coach Chris,
Coach
tell them
Chris.
thanks if you enjoy our show, because they're a big reason we're here. Plain and
Yeah,
simple. So thank you very
Clinton.
much to all of you.
Clinton Watson also came in today with 20. So thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, really, we wouldn't have the show if you guys weren't supporting us, especially as much as we do it. I mean, God, Scott and I talk 7 hours a week football. It's crazy. Deanna says, "Go Broncos, headed to work." Well, have a good one. We always appreciate you. So then the Broncos head to LA to play the Rams. This is a terrible Rams team, and guess what? Aaron Donald hurt his ankle. They might shut him down for the season. That's a winnable game. The bad children across the world are going to be forced to have to watch that game on Christmas Day instead of cold this year. But it's going to be definitely a winnable game. Then Denver heads to Arrowhead on January 1st. I think that's the least winnable game. January 8th at home, Chargers. You got a chance in that one. I know the Chargers are much better, but the Broncos always play the Chargers tough. It doesn't matter what the records are. It's weird.
And what are the Chargers playing for? You don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the Broncos could be playing for jobs, playing for contracts. The Chargers could be playing to rest up starters and not get anybody hurt ahead of their playoff game that's already been decided.
Yeah. Yep. Lance Dorian coming in saying, "Do you think we'll get flexed out of primetime slot versus the Chiefs?" 10,000%. They're not.
What are the other choices? Because Patrick Mahomes is a big draw.
I know that I think you have the Jets versus the Bills, which would probably be a much more interesting game, in my opinion. The CBS can save a game, I think, or what do they call it? Anchor a game or something like that.
Yeah,
but
we get a hold. That makes sense.
Yep. So that's one of the games. I can look it up. But Scott, so we have these games here. We have at Ravens, Chiefs at Broncos, Cardinals at Broncos, at Rams, Broncos at Chiefs, Chargers at Broncos. Can you rank these 1 to 6 as far as the least winnable to the most winnable?
Oh, you get one win out of that bunch. That's what I thought you were going to ask me.
Yeah.
I think
you think one?
You split between the Rams and the Cardinals.
So you think so? If I set the line at 1.5, you're taking the under.
I'd take one. I think you might be able to get a split between the Rams and the Cardinals. The next, those are the two that I would say are 50-50-ish. The Cardinals are at home, so that would probably be the most winnable. And then I would go Rams, and then I might actually go Chiefs last game third, depending on what the Chiefs are doing. Is what they're doing. Then the two least winnable games for me are at Ravens and the Chiefs while they're still playing for something.
So the next 2 weeks you think are the least winnable games? I think the most winnable game is Cardinals at Broncos. Then it's Broncos at Rams, followed by Chargers at Broncos. Then I'm going to I think the Broncos Chiefs game, I think they're going to have. Actually, the next I'll take the Ravens game, this upcoming game. And then it's the Chiefs at Denver, and then finally January 1st at Arrowhead. I think the AFC will not be wrapped up by then. So I think that the Chiefs will probably be playing. If they win that game, they'll probably clinch the 1 seed. So I think that that's the least winnable game. Playing at Arrowhead, January 1st. I mean, woof.
Yeah, like I said, it just depends on what they're playing for.
Yeah.
It may be a preseason type of roster for them. Lineup for them. We'll see. Yep. But I don't like at Ravens. The weather shouldn't bother you too much, but you never know what the weather's going to be like. They're either outdoors, but East Coast against a smash mouth AFC North team. How has that gone the last 2 years?
Not over. Oh, I mean, the Broncos playing the East Coast has been pretty much over for a while. So
there you go.
Even when they were good, they struggled. I think there was a weird streak where if the Broncos played in like Florida or something in the first month of the season, they hadn't won a game in Florida in September and October for like 20 years.
It's like the old Chargers and Dolphins sending them, into the snow. They can't do it.
Yep. So Patrick heading out, and so are we. Aloha for now. Aloha, hello, goodbye. Talk to you later, Patrick. Thank you so much for the coffee. And man, we appreciate the heck out of you. One last thing here, just because I'm a glutton for punishment. Would you rather have Wilson or Locke right now? It would only be 1 year left of Locke's contract. You need to have all the cap flexibility and draft picks. I was a big critic of Drew Lock, especially at the end, because people were making him out to be a better quarterback than he was.
Let's throw that out of there, though. Who gives you a better chance to win?
In a 1-game sample size, Russell Wilson, I still think, is the better quarterback. But you can't talk about that without Russell Wilson comes with the contract and the trade.
Because that's not, I mean, when we talk about in the hindsight of the trade and the contract and all that, it's not close. You would much rather have those draft picks back. Drew Lock, you'd rather have me at quarterback right now and have those be out from under that contract and have those draft picks back. 100%. The season's over.
Yeah.
And, so that one's not about Drew Lock. So I want to make this about Drew Lock or Russell Wilson. Who would give you a better chance to win right now? Probably neither. Drew play. I wouldn't, if either of those guys are quarterback, I wouldn't change how I just picked those 5 games. Drew started the last 3 games last year. He went 0-3. He hasn't proven to be a quality quarterback in this league. Russell Wilson has, even if he's not playing it right now. So on that note.
Yep. It's where we are. That's
I'm gonna put up like $1 jar. I'm gonna put $1 in it every time someone goes,
It's unbelievable, man. It's how bad this team has been for the last 7 years. I think the Broncos made a deal with the devil to reincarnate Peyton Manning for that 4-year stretch. It's the only thing that makes any sense. And but appreciate you guys so much for joining us today. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at BFB_pod and, of course, at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you like on the way out and join our Facebook groups if you're over on Facebook at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. As the ticker shows there underneath, if you're joining us on YouTube today, please subscribe to Mile High Huddle, like this episode, and share it on your social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram story. You can tag me on there. Heck, follow me on Instagram. It's all hiking photos. It's a good time. Or backpacking photos. A lot of Pacific Northwest love out there. But share it wherever. And also make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube as well. I will be live again with you guys tonight with Carl Dumler. Checked in with him yesterday. He will be back today. He's got a lot going on right now. But Carl will be back. And then Scott and I will be over covering the Falcons tomorrow. And Broncos country, just giving you a heads up. Scott and I pretty soon here are going to be making more of a transition to the NFL draft and free agency in general, with the Falcons only a game out still, but probably not making the playoffs. We'll see. And Denver definitely out of it. It's about to be full steam ahead in the draft.
Yep. So I want to say thank you to our big supporters today. Andrew Lampy came in on Facebook, Ethan, the DWI guys, Deanna Hendry, Clinton Watson, Gary Palmer, Coach Chris, all coming in with big baller supers today. Appreciate you. Love you. Thank you. We wouldn't be here without you. And go USA, 2:00 Eastern. It is an elimination game. You will see 2 teams going for it today. They're not just feeling each other out like the early rounds, which you see sometimes in group play in the World Cup. These 2 teams will be going for it today. It'll be a fun match.
Yeah, will be a fun match. I will definitely be tuning in at work. That's a good thing about multiple monitors, right? I am working. I just have something on in the background. But we appreciate you guys so much. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you again to everybody coming in and support today. We really felt the love. And it's been tough with the Broncos this year. So extra thanks to you guys. As Ethan says, go USA, go you guys. Make sure you continue to choose kindness and compassion. We'll see you again tonight. Go Broncos.